there, freedom lover. Welcome to the Mortgages and Mimosas podcast, where we empower single women just like you to intentionally buy your first house so you can accelerate your path to financial freedom. I am your hostess, Nobu Musikiwa. I am so excited to hang out with you today. Let's get started. Well, listen, buying your first house can be super stressful, but it is even more stressful potentially if you are not from here. So I'm super excited for our guest today, Nyasha, who is originally from Zimbabwe, who bought her very first house in Texas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
I am super excited to have you here. Hashtag team 263.
Hey.
So there's so many places I want to start from, but I want to start, I guess, from the end and then work our way backwards.
Okay.
So how old were you when you bought your very first house? And tell us how much this house was and kind of like the summary about it.
Yeah. I bought my first house when I was 27. And there was nobody there. I think like my mom actually didn't believe me because I was like I've always I believe in manifestation, right? And so I've always told myself I want to buy some kind of property by the time I am 30. And so I've been in my apartment for like 6 years, and I don't know, like one day I just woke up and I just started looking, and at homes, my lease wasn't even over until like maybe the next 8 months, right? And so I told myself I am not renewing my lease. I am going to move out if I don't have a house. Like heck, I didn't even have savings. Okay, I was just telling people I'm not renewing my lease. I didn't have savings enough for like a house, for like a down payment. And you have like all these like preconceived notions, like you need to have 20% down or anything like that. Well, I didn't know anything, girl, but I just told myself I am not renewing my lease. I'm going to, I don't know, figure it out, right? So okay. The year ends, and like my lease was up in December. So like literally December 31st, like I was like moving out, and I was moving it with my mom. And I told my mom, I am going to move in with you for, some time. I don't know how long. So, cause I'm going to buy a house. And so she didn't believe me. She's like, oh, okay, cool. African mothers are like, oh, welcome home, my child.
Like, you're not leaving ever.
Right? So I moved in with my mom, and at this point, I'm aggressively looking, right? Looking for more information, and I am going to different builders and stuff, because I don't know, I think the market then, it wasn't as aggressive as it is now, but I didn't want to be, bidding with other people, and on top of that, I wanted to take my time. And so I went the new construction route, right? I did my research. I had nobody to guide me through this journey, nobody. But I always tell people that's not an excuse. You need to take ownership of your life and do as much research as possible, because sometimes there's nobody that's going to be there to handhold you or anything like that, right? Google is your best friend. I like to tell people that. And Google was my best friend.
Okay, so a few things to unpack here. So your mom didn't believe you.
No.
So did your mom have a house at the time?
No, she stayed in an
owned her
apartment.
house?
So she had a 2-bedroom apartment and stuff. So I was like, you have extra room, I'll just move in.
So what is it? So your mom didn't own her own house at the time?
No.
And so what is it that made you decide, okay, I've been in this apartment 6 times. What is it that triggered you to say, okay, I'm ready to buy my first house after your 6 years in your apartment?
Because it's I think every single year, your rent keeps going up and up and up and up, right? I moved into my apartment, and my rent was maybe I think maybe $575 or for $590, something like that, right?
Wait, I need to move to Texas. $500? What?
Right? By the time I moved out of my apartment, my rent was maybe $1,200, and that's just yes, exactly. It was it went up there. And I'm like, this, it doesn't make sense, right? A 1-bedroom apartment that's like maybe like 700 square feet. I mean, maybe in New York, like that's a lot, but in Texas, it's not, right? But
You're
I
not
was
welcome to New
like,
York City,
this can't
ma'am.
be it, right? So I was like people are paying mortgages at this, at 1,200, right? So that was like the main thing. And another thing was, Toyota, like a lot of people from California were moving down, and Toyota's was moving their headquarters down here. And like, I even tried to move to like a different apartment, I'm sorry. And the prices were like even crazier. So I was like, no, I'm not doing this. Like the least I can do is like invest in some kind of property, because it's like, I'm just throwing away money. Right. So that was like the main factor. And just let's be wise about how we spend our money.
We have somebody else marveling at the $500. Even if you wanted to go ahead.
No, like this was like, oh my God, a long time ago, probably like what, 2010 maybe? But still, like that's really, really good, right?
That's still like super cheap to me, because I moved to New York City in 2008 and I couldn't even find a room to rent for $500. So like a whole apartment for $500, that's completely wild, completely wild to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, it was crazy, because I'm like, just the jump, it was shocking to a lot of people, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's a huge rent increase in just a 6-year period.
Exactly.
So all right, so you decide, okay, rent is crazy, and I'm gonna buy a house. So in your, I guess in your community, right? Like in your Zim community, were there other people that you had seen that had bought a house? I know you said you were by yourself. Was it by yourself?
Not when, like, because you know how like the stigma, it's like, oh, you can't buy, you have to wait until you're married, and then you and your husband can like buy a house together. Like the only people that I knew that had bought houses, like they bought houses like with their significant others, but not like single women. Like I didn't know any.
So you basically were a pioneer. Well done. And did you get any, I know your mom didn't believe you were going to do it. Did you get any pushback from her?
No,
about you buying
like,
a house by yourself?
Was very supportive, but like, because it's funny, because ever since like I was younger, I would always push him like, we need to buy a house, and my mom was like, oh my God, it's such a big responsibility, I couldn't, right? And so by the time she saw that I was really serious, because she told me, she's like, I didn't really think you were going to move out of your apartment. And then I was like, why? She's like, I don't know. I just didn't see you doing it. Right. And then she's like, I knew you were serious when you actually moved out of your apartment and you moved into mine. And after that, she was like, I knew you were serious. And then she supported me throughout. Like I would go looking for houses with her and all that kind of stuff. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, high five to mom for being supportive. So you move in with your mom?
Yes.
And you decide, okay, I'm really going to buy this house for real. And you start like researching.
Yes.
So what was the first thing that you started looking at, and why? Like, what did you start researching and why?
So for me, the first thing, of course, price points. This is very important as somebody that's single, right? So I started looking at different budget builders. Is what I would call. That's what they are, really, right?
Wait, I just heard about DH something.
Yes, DH Horton. Yes,
is that who you bought from?
They are budget. They're budget because they have different subdivisions with DH Horton. They have like the luxury brand, and then they have like Express is their the budget part. It starts from the Express and then DH Horton, and I think they have another level above that is like exclusive.
I just saw a crazy video about DH Horton. I called my friend who's in Texas. I was like, y'all always do these new construction. She was like, oh my God, stay away from them.
Yeah, no, there's some budget builders you should definitely stay away from. Yeah, so I looked at Express and DR Horton, right? all of those, and different places, you know, within the city. And I mean, of course, like Texas is big, and location really, like going to the suburbs, like it's like really far. But my work was like basically central, so it didn't matter where I bought a house. So I went to this one time I went to this community, and it was like in the middle of nowhere, and it was an express home too. and then they were like, oh, they don't have like a fire department here, so the fire department would come from like the next city over, so if anything happens, it'll take about 30 minutes for them to get there. And I was like, being single, and what if somebody breaks into my house? It's gonna take 30 minutes to come to my house? No. So that was a big no-no. And so crazy part, while I was there, because then I used to work nights, right? So I left work and I drove like an hour away to this place to go see this house or whatever, right? And then so I'm sitting in the parking lot, and somebody pulls up, and they're like, oh, you know, are you waiting for them to open? I'm like, yeah. And then so he goes back and he sits in his car. And then later on, he's like leaving, and then he knocks on my window again. And then I'm like, oh my God, what does this man want? And then so he's like, hey, I'm a realtor, you know, if you don't have a realtor, just, you know, let me know, and here's my card, type of thing. I was just like, oh, okay, cool. And I just put it in my purse and kept it moving. And then so I don't know what made me text him. And I was just like, I was like, hey, you know, can you tell me more, you know? And then he was like, yeah. Like, I'm like, do you pay to get like a realtor? Like, how much do you charge? He's like, no, it's free. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, then who pays you? And then he's like, if the seller is the one that pays the realtor, right? So if, you know, you're going through new construction, then the builder would pay me like 3% or whatever, right? And then I was just like, oh, things that you don't know.
Right.
Like most people, you think like, oh yeah, you need to pay the realtor and stuff when you're the buyer, but no, that's not the case. So definitely get yourself a realtor. It makes life a lot easier. It depends what kind of realtor. Like I'm very type A, so by the time I engage my realtor, I've already done all my homework. So my realtors have it easy.
So I have a couple of questions. So first, so you're looking at all these new construction sites or new construction builders, I guess.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You're just going and seeing their model homes.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, because the model home is usually like their best. And so, yeah. So sometimes they might not have anything to show, or sometimes they'll show you like a new build like somebody else is doing and that's under construction, depending on the level of construction that it is, if you actually want to see. But like they'll give you like different booklets and stuff and tell you the base price. And then of course, base price will change contingent on your upgrades.
So a lot of people that I know in Texas have bought like these new builds. So are there like so many just new construction that's the best deal? Like, are there no like old regular homes? Like, why is it that a lot of people in Texas go with these new constructions? I'm curious. And then also we have a question about like express homes, like what an express home is exactly.
So express home is like we're saying, it's like well, there's this builder called D.R. Horton, right? So D.R. Horton has excuse me, an express like a budget a budget line, so to speak. So those are the ones that are called express homes. So they kind of have like 3 like tiers of like their housing, you know, or the type of houses that they build. So express would be on the lower end, and then D.R. Horton is like their main I guess brand, and then they have another luxury brand that's on top of D.R. Horton, but it's still the same company. I forgot the name of it, but yeah.
Got it.
So most builders, they usually have like different lines of like even the home that I am right now, they also have like different tiers of homes that they build.
Interesting. Us Northeast people, we don't have the luxury of land and space. We don't know about this new construction. So all right. So just why? And I don't know anybody in Texas, but the few people I know in Texas, it's like, why do most people go for new construction in Texas as opposed to like a regular house that's built already, in your opinion, or in your case?
So in my opinion, I think one, you don't have to bid with anybody else, right? Like base price is base price. So Like I'm saying, you have your base price, but your base price changes depending on the upgrades that you get.
So
Go
do
ahead.
the builders don't take any. So if the builder says this house is 200, I can't go and say, well, I'll offer you 185.
No, not
Okay.
really. That's just the base price, because like at that point, like they know, like because they're just sitting in an office, really, people coming in, so they're not going out there actively looking for people. Like, I mean, they'll give you incentives, that's about it. Like, incentives can be like, oh, we'll offer you maybe $20,000 in upgrades, and then we'll offer you maybe $6,000 in closing costs and stuff like that. Like, they bid against each other as builders. Like, so if another builder maybe down the street is having like some kind of, like, not sale, but like incentives, because that's mainly what the sale is. They're not going to put a sale on the price tag of the house. Like, that's
Okay.
rare, but they'll give you incentives.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't typically get those incentives from somebody or from an older house, right? So an older house, one, there's the mystery of, what am I going to get? You don't know what's under the hood, really. You know what I mean? And
It's like, what are they called? What are the Chinese things called?
the
Fortune cookies.
fortune cookies. Or you can Forrest Gump it and be like, it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, right?
Fair. I mean, fair. That's fair enough. All my houses have been old. I'm just used to it. I just never consider like a brand new place.
Yeah. And another thing is, like, people like who are type A like me, like, I probably, like, if I got an older house, I would demolish it all and just restart all over again, and according to what I want, right? So it's like a waste of money, like, in my opinion. Like, especially when you have that option. If you don't have that option, then, like, of course. But if you have the option to go new construction, I always route for new construction, because also on top of that, like, I mean, of course, like, building has changed over time, but then they have, like, more energy efficient homes that, your bill, because there was another thing. My mom would always be like, I don't want a house because, oh my God, our bill is going to be so expensive, like electricity bill. And I'm like, now, it's like, maybe you'll pay like $100 for like your heating and cooling, and that's like, because like your house is more energy efficient, right?
Yep.
Versus like in, I don't know, an older home. So those are some of the things to look into.
Yeah. The house I'm in right now is older, and it has an old boiler, so like the gas that I pay in this house is absolutely insane. Like, it's more than what I pay for a building that's like 3 times the size in New York City. It's crazy.
Oh, wow.
So I hear you on newer, more energy efficient.
Yeah.
So question from Falgunita here. Would the price on an older house be cheaper though? No. Okay.
It would actually be more expensive, because then you're bidding against other people, right? So whenever, like, I mean, you don't know what the other people are bidding, right? So usually starting price, or market price that the buyer puts, you always want to, especially in well, I don't know now, but when I was selling my house in that market, you always wanted to put a whole lot more, just so you can make sure you get the house. But so you don't know if you're putting in way too much or way too low. It's just like a gambling thing. So
yeah, and it just sounds like with the, like, since it's building is so common in the area and there's so many builders, it's like easier to kind of pit one against each other. Whereas if I'm just selling my house for myself, like, I don't have any incentive to give you extra like discounts or whatever. I just want the house sold. Whereas like if I have like, 20 buildings that are just sitting around and I need them to move fast so I can pay, whoever is servicing that build for me, then there's more incentive for me to like get this building off my hands and like sold.
Exactly.
By matching another builder's deals, I think.
Exactly.
So it's very, very interesting. So I guess I'm curious with this first house that you're building. Okay, so you decide on the particular builder.
Yes.
Did you you said that you talked to this realtor person. Did that
Yeah.
person end up being your realtor, or you just talked to them and then they did not end up being your person? I'm
No, so they
curious.
ended up being my realtor, but by the time they actually came in to do the legwork, like I'd
You
already
already
decided
knew.
on a builder. Like I already knew who I was going with. And it so happened that like they knew that builder and they had worked within that subdivision and all that kind of stuff. So they were able to give me more information. But for the most part, what I did, like again, I went and so like all of January I was looking. And so by January 31st or something like that, I had a contract with the builder. So basically, if it's like new construction, they will tell you that. So, skirt. Let me rewind a little bit. So, what I did is I kind of went backwards during like, my building, um, session. So what I did was I found the builder, and of course I knew like, that's just a base price. What are the upgrades, right? And so I was like, I want to go to your showroom. And like they usually like you only go to the showroom once you have a contract, and you can't go to the showroom because it's like they don't know who you are. You might be competition, you might be anybody, and so they don't want to give you that information. So I was like,
What
no,
is
if
the showroom?
the showroom is where you go and where the upgrades are. So it's kind of like a big warehouse that it's like I'm like a kid in a
So
candy
it's like
store.
a secret playland.
Yes. Where they have all the cabinetry that they offer, all the stones, like every single thing that you pick for your house.
So they don't have this in the model home. They don't show you like the
No,
different
well,
like
in the no,
options.
like unless if it's like again budget builder, like Express Homes, right? Express Homes, it comes like you pick out of three packages. Like you either pick the brown package, the white package, or I don't know something else, right? And that's like, and
Oh.
it comes pre-packaged. You don't get to choose anything.
Oh, I
Like
didn't realize that. I thought you were actually like picking like, okay, I want this floor. I want like these type of
no.
doorknobs. Oh,
They
interesting.
will
Okay.
tell you that this house will come if you choose this package one, it will come with this and this and this and this. Package two will come with this and this and this and this, and etc. Maybe
Huh.
like you would choose if they offer that, they'll be like, well, maybe upgrade an additional $2,000 or $5,000 to get stainless steel appliances. Like that's a budget builder because it's like they get all these things in bulk, so the price point is cheaper. So they tell their people that, hey, this is what you're going to get. If you don't want that, then you go to a different builder, and that different builder is the one that's going to give you more options. But then they're going to be more expensive because they have to order those things like once you have a contract and you've been pre-approved and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. So you signed your contract after you got your realtor or before?
Uh, it was a little bit of both because I had met him, but I hadn't really like engaged him like that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So by the time I got my contract, like I called him as I'm like, hey, I need to go sign my contract. Are you gonna come with? Type of thing. And then he was like, oh, okay, cool. So we went together to go sign the contract, but I already made my mind up on what
But
it
you
is.
you hadn't. Sorry, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I had finished.
So you hadn't actually gone to see places with him. You just had
No,
been like kind of asking him questions as you were
yeah,
looking at stuff on your own.
exactly. Well, yeah,
Interesting.
for the most, just in general, like stuff about like him, like what his job is. So he was like, yeah, and also like I'd be like an advocate for you with the builder if like I'd go like take a look at the home once it's getting built, making sure that
Wow.
they're doing everything the right way, type of thing. Because I mean, at this point, like I'd done all the legwork. Like usually a realtor is the one that goes around and shows you stuff, but I went and I showed myself around and made the decision and all that kind of stuff. So I basically engaged him after I'd already made my decision.
Okay. If you're just joining us, I am talking to Nyasha about her very first house that she bought in Texas by herself. I am checking the chat, so any questions that you have, go ahead and drop your question. So I kind of the closest I've been to buying a new construction is like new construction, like condos. And so
Mm-hmm.
like in the ones that I've seen, like there is a realtor from like the builder that is like
Mm-hmm.
there
Yes.
showing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So is it the same in Texas?
Yes. So
Okay.
there's the realtor that sits in the office and waits for the clients to come in. And so You go, and he's the one that gives you all the information in regards to that community, that house, and any incentives that they have. So he's just there to just show you like their product.
So I guess my question is, when you rolled up with this new realtor that hadn't
Mhm.
actually showed you, like, was that builder's realtor mad? Because normally, like, they would
No,
just get the
so
full, you know,
yeah, so what happens
percentage.
is that's the builder's realtor is always going to be there, right? Like no matter what, there's always going to be somebody there, and they get their commission also. So their commission, well, I mean, I guess it is contingent, because if somebody comes in and they don't have a builder, I mean, they don't have a realtor, then they kind of get like the
The
full,
full
like
cut.
maybe
Yeah.
6%. But then this, if somebody comes in with their own realtor, then they kind of get 3%, and your realtor gets 3%.
Yeah. So they didn't get upset that you came in with this
No, I
person
mean, they're
last
not
minute.
upset because, like, I mean, it's easy money. They're just sitting in an office.
I mean, they're okay. If you were coming into my site and I'm showing you all these models, whatever, answering all your questions, and I'm expecting my full 6% cut or 5%, whatever it is in Texas, and then now you come up with this random person, it's like,
No,
ma'am,
like they don't
like,
think
what?
about it like that. No, they don't think about it like that because they know, like, at their, because like most of the legwork is not really done by them, right? Because it's like they actually rely on other realtors to bring them clients, because you're
Yeah.
just sitting in an office and chilling. If there's no clients, you get to play solitaire.
And I guess like they get the cut off of like all the sales anyway, so it's not really a big deal because like everybody that's
Exactly.
buying, like they're getting a piece of it.
Yeah.
So, um, interesting. Okay. So, and I was gonna ask you if you had done all the legwork in finding your place, right? So,
Mhm.
what made you decide that it was a good idea to get a realtor on your side?
Because I was like, I know nothing about construction, right? So if something goes wrong, like how would I know? Like what? Like you only ask questions to things that you know, right? So I'm like, I
Mm,
figured if he's done the construction and he also specializes in the construction, then like he can be my advocate. So there are certain things that you're, as a home buyer, you're excited, like, oh my god, I'm getting a home, and then there's some questions that you don't think to ask, and there's some things that you might not necessarily see when your house is getting built, like, oh, they did this wrong. So he's also there to point those out.
yeah, I like what you said that you only ask questions that you like know. Like if you don't
Mhm.
know what you don't know. So
Exactly.
if you have no idea what plumbing's supposed to look like, or like what kind of how your trim's supposed to be nailed to whatever, like you're gonna just be like, oh, it looks fine to me, and
Yeah.
and then like once you move in, you start seeing things falling apart,
Yeah.
and that's problematic.
Exactly.
Um, so you're at this place now where you signed this contract. So December you move out and you don't know what's going on, right? You don't know, like, oh,
Mhm.
I don't know if it's gonna work out, manifestation. And
Yeah.
then like end of January you sign your contract. Is that
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Okay, so where wh- where did the money come from for the deposit, number one? And then number two, with the new construction, do you need to come with like a pre-approval in hand? Like, how does that work in terms of getting a mortgage when you're dealing with a builder?
Yeah.
I have so many
So that's a
questions. Like, where does the
really,
money come
really,
from?
really good question. It's a really, really good question. So I always tell people this: with the builder, you only need, like, so it varies by builder, right? So it can be as low as $1,000 and be as high as maybe $5,000 that the builder will want as earnest money. So
Okay.
earnest money is basically you putting some money down in good faith to say, hey, I am signing a contract with you, and you're going to be building my house, and you're signing also a contract with me that we're in contract together, right? That you're locking in your price, and at that point, yeah, quote unquote, you're also locking in like that interest for the time being, right? It's not necessarily going to be that's the most interest that you will get. It's not going to go any higher than that, right? So if the market changes, you're still going to be getting your interest at pre-approval. But they also have like internal lenders, the builders, like they have their own lenders that they work with. So most builders, they will incentivize you to use their lenders, because one, it's easier moving paperwork and stuff, especially when you know like that base price is going to go up no matter what. Like there's nobody that's ever, well, that I know, that's ever bought a new construction home with the base price of 200,000 and they were at 200,000 when they closed. There's no such thing. There's always something that you need that is not included in the base price, and so it's just one of those things that they know that that price is going to go up. So what you do is you work with the lender, and then they take a look at your credit. It's a hard pull, and they take a look at your debt to income ratio. They take a look and give you basically a synopsis of how much money, or how much house you can afford, basically. So let's say it's a $200,000 home. They will maybe, if they look at your credit and how much you make and all that, and then your debt to income, and they'll be like, well, you can afford $250,000 home. So that means that you can upgrade up to 250,000 and nothing more.
So you went with the builder's lender, yes?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So did you talk to that lender before you signed the contract?
Yes. Like
okay.
Usually, yes. So usually what happens is it's vice versa, but I don't know. I've always done it the other way around, where I talk to the lender and find out exactly how much house I can afford. And that way, I said in the beginning, like I did everything backwards. I went to the showroom first, took a look at inventory, everything that I wanted, knew the base price, went home, created a spreadsheet, added all my the things that I wanted and tallied up. Like, okay, this is how much like my house that I want is gonna cost. Now let me go talk to the lender. Let me see how much house I can actually afford. And so it happened to fall in line with what I wanted. And so I was on the phone with like the lender for like maybe 2 or 3 hours, like asking the lender questions, like, what about this? What about this? This and this and this and that, like before they even, like, cause I'm like, I'm not about to have you pull my credit. Like, that's a hard hit, right? So I was asking every question on planet Earth, and I was on Google researching stuff. So of course I had a lot of questions, right? About like new construction, how the lending process was, because I'd never gone through this. Like I don't know, right? So definitely ask a lot of questions, because this is your money. This is a lot. This is the most money you will ever spend in one sitting when you're buying a house, really. So you really have to ask a lot of questions, do a lot of research, like do your own due diligence, because nobody's going to do it for you, really, and nobody's going to come out and, even your realtor, because sometimes your realtor, they've been in this business for too long, and they assume some of these things, right? And so they take for granted the things that the buyers, don't know. But I always say, do your due diligence.
So, the options for lenders with your builder, was there only one option? Did you get a few options?
They have usually a few options. So they'll give you like, they'll match. This is what like the realtor person at the builder level, because we ended up being like really, really close friends. So like they'll match you based on like who you are, like personality wise, 1, 2, money wise. Because let's say you're starting off and maybe your credit is not so good, and you're starting off like at the very base price. They're not going to give you the top tier lender, right? Because they're more focused on people with a more established credit. They'll give you somebody that will be, with that deals with people who have like a lower, credit score and all that kind of stuff. So
that like need more, that are willing to like handhold you a little bit more.
Exactly. Yeah. So they have several lenders within their belt, and they just, match people with different lenders according to circumstance and situation.
So how many lenders did you speak to?
Only spoke to one lender.
You spoke to one. Okay.
Yeah.
So you said, it's important to ask questions. Do you remember what some of the questions were that you asked? And then ultimately, why did you decide, okay, I don't have to talk to anybody else, this is my person?
Well, first, like the level of service and care that she had. I mean, nobody sits there for 3 hours answering all your questions with no contract. Like, I haven't met anybody, right? And so she just sat there and took in all my questions, answered all my questions and everything. And one of like the biggest worries that I had was, like, I'd read online that your mortgage, basically, like with the new construction home, can go up. right? So let's say like after like the first year. So let's say your mortgage is like $1,200. It can jump from $1,200 to $2,000. Why? Right? So she was like, yeah, so like that happens sometimes when, maybe you don't have enough money in escrow, right? So let's say, for an example, well, let me go back.
Take it back.
First,
Take it
one of
back.
those things, yes, one of those things will happen if you're like, usually the first year that you move in, your taxes assessed on unimproved land. So unimproved land is just basically the lot. So the following year, now, so unimproved, so for an example, like the house that I'm in, the unimproved lot was like maybe $6,000. So the taxes that you pay for that first year in your house would be based off of $6,000. And then so now your house is like, you've closed on your house, you've closed at like maybe $200,000. Now your taxes are being assessed based off of $200,000 as opposed to $6,000.
So that's actually really like a really important thing for people to like index on. So when you're
Yes.
getting a mortgage, your mortgage is not just you paying back the bank. They're also going to
Mhm.
include your taxes and your
Taxes.
insurance and your PMI in that
Mhm.
that payment back amount. So
Exactly.
now if your lender is calculating taxes and they're calculating based on the land, it is definitely going to go up for sure when you have a whole building that's there. So it's actually
Exactly.
really surprising to me that that's how they calculate taxes for new construction loans,
They do.
and that
So
they
what
don't
they
tell
do
you.
is your lender is actually supposed to let you know this information beforehand, but maybe some lenders don't tell you this because
Mhm.
my lender was like, "Don't worry," because the statement that's going to come is going to be like, okay, your balance for this month is $1,000. She's like, do not look at the statement. If your mortgage, when we assessed your we will assess your mortgage and in final approval. If your mortgage came up to 1,400, do not pay the $1,000, pay the 1,400 because that's what your mortgage is going to be, because that 1,400, the taxes are assessed based off of the price of the house and
Okay.
not the land, because they can't put in a statement for something and charge you for something that you're currently not paying for, in
Okay.
essence, right? So a lot of home builders, like new construction, they get excited. They're like, "Oh, they told me my mortgage is going to be 1,400, and my statement came as $1,000. So yay, I'm going to pay the $1,000." But come the next year, you're going to have a shortage in your escrow.
Got it. So your lender should tell
Should
you
tell
before
you
you close, but not all lenders actually do it. It sounds like,
exactly.
since you were
Yeah,
seeing all these stories about people
yeah.
getting upset, because I mean, listen, my
Hella
taxes have just
upset.
gone up, and I've been upset. Like, wait a minute, like an extra $100. So now if
Right.
it's going from like a $6,000 like valued asset to like
Yeah,
250K, that's a huge difference in how much you have to
exactly,
pay like the city. Like, that's crazy.
exactly, exactly.
So great job. And I'm really impressed that you were able to like do all your research and like find all these questions, and then also be confident enough to ask somebody those questions,
Yeah.
because not everybody does that. So
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't even know why. Like I was like, like you can Google like the stupidest thing, like pros and cons, building new construction near NA, and you will see different forums of different people talking about different things and all that kind of stuff. And so that's one of the questions. That's one of the main things that I was seeing a lot of people like, oh my God, my mortgage went up my second year like crazy. This and this and this and this and that. And I was just like, oh my God, this seems to be like an ongoing trend. Like, what's going on? So I asked like my lender that, like, okay, like why would it go up? And so that's what she explained to me.
was there any like, what else was like a big concern that you had that you asked her about? Because y'all on the phone for 3 hours, so like
Yes.
that
So
must
another
have been.
thing is like, oh, of course, like at this point, like I don't have like at this point, like I'd learned that okay, fine, no, like you don't necessarily have to put like the full 20 down, right? You can get 3.5 via FHA. Okay, you calculate that, how much would it be? Okay, well, I don't have that money right now. And then so what they can do is they can approve you conditionally. So you don't have to now wait and be like, well, I've calculated my house. This is how much money, this is how much house I know I can afford, but I don't have that right now. So you're not going to now save up that money and then come back later, because when you come back later, odds are that house has gone up already. So what they can do is they can approve you conditionally. So when they approve you conditionally, it's in the sense that, okay, fine, by the time your house is done being built, you would have raised that money.
Mm.
Yeah. So
That
if your
that's a
closing costs are like $20,000, including, so your closing costs are, that's another thing I did not know, right? Your closing
okay.
costs are not just your down payment and that's it.
Girl,
That's your
I
down
thought that
payment.
too.
Right?
I was
Let
like, wait a
me
minute, I
tell you these things. So your closing costs are, especially if you're like, moving into like a subdivision, right? So you'll have like your, oh, even just like regular, I mean, even a condo really, like they have HOA. So your HOA will be included in that for that particular year and just that particular year. And any prepaid. So for an example, you can have like prepaids for like the following year. So your prepaids also include, if you like maybe like some of your taxes for the next year, or just so you can pad up your escrow and not be in the negative. I always like to pad up my escrow because I'm like, I don't want to have any issues. I don't want to, all that kind of stuff. So my lenders, like, they usually pad me up really good to where like right now I think like my escrow is like over $8,000. So I know if anything happens and the market or my taxes, they go up quite a bit, which they have in my current house, I still have that extra padding and I don't have to come out of pocket because, again, the lenders, they always do like mistakes and all that kind of stuff and miscalculate your taxes or whatever. And so you always want a good padding. So I would always encourage you guys to ask your builder to add, not your builder, your lender, to add onto your prepays. That way you have a little bit of overage in your escrow. And
yeah, you'd
so
rather go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
I think you'd rather have too much money as opposed to
Yes, then
have a
less.
shortfall, and then now your mortgage payment has to go up to make up for that shortfall.
Exactly.
We have somebody that also got a new construction, and got pre-qualified before they
Yeah.
they got pre-qualified before
Before they
the
went to the
builders,
builder,
but they
yes.
didn't use the builders
And you don't always
lender.
have to use the builder's lender, to be honest. You can use your own. It's just, some people, they prefer that, paperwork and all that kind of stuff, because once you go to the showroom and then you have like your upgrades and stuff. So sometimes like what they can do is now you'd have to be the one shuffling the paperwork, going back and forth between your lender and the builder, as opposed to if you use the builder's lender, it's more like a streamlined process, right? So, and on top of that, I mean, you can, if you find like a better rate, you can always refinance. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, get in the house and then figure out
Yeah.
your loan later. Like, what? Don't make it complicated. Whatever loan you can get in, and then just change it later.
Yeah.
So okay. So it sounds like when you put your contract in, how much did you put down for your deposit or for your escrow? I'm sorry, not escrow.
No, for earnest money.
Earnest money, yes.
Yes. So my earnest money was like, I think it was either 1,000 or 1,500, I think.
And then how much? So, and then your lender, how much did your lender tell you that you needed in order to get the house?
So my lender, geez, I think
at the time you started, because I know it could have changed.
Yeah. At the time I started, I think it was like maybe like 11,000, or maybe.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Or yeah, no, I know I went with a check of 11,000, but I paid something else before that. I don't know, but either way, it was not. It did not get up to $20,000. The whole thing, I promise you.
And then how much was the house?
The house, when I signed the contract, was $179,000.
Okay. When you signed, so initially, before you added the extras, I signed I heard that when I signed the contract, that's how much you bought it for.
And by the time I closed, it was $197,000.
Okay, that's not. I mean, I feel like $20,000
not a big jump. Like usually, yeah, because they usually say on average you'll upgrade about $30,000.
But also, I have seen houses in Texas for like $200K, and I feel like a $200K house is probably a freaking mansion.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, this is another thing, right? Honey, it's your starter home. You get in where you can, right? And then you can always upgrade after, right? Because this is, I think a lot of like maybe first-time home buyers, they try to make this mistake that the first time you have to get your dream home. There's no such thing. There's no such thing because at that point, like, yes, there is such a thing. I mean, if you have the money like that, right? But I'm taking a look at it from a standpoint that I'm single and this is not my forever home. That's the way I went in looking at it. And on top of that, I still had my dream home then because what I did was I upgraded the core things like, structural. Like most of my upgrade money and the things that I picked was structurally. So upgrading from like 8-foot ceilings to like 9-foot ceilings, you can't upgrade that after you done built your house. You can't do that. So things like that, think about it from that standpoint. A lot of people, when they think upgrade, they're thinking, oh my God, my cabinets need to be this and this and this and that. No, all of that is cosmetics and it's interchangeable. Upgrade structural things that you cannot upgrade after, even if you wanted to, right? So that's where a lot of my money went. And I remember the day after closing, like literally the day after closing, I had people coming out, tearing up carpet, doing all kinds of things because I didn't want to upgrade for flooring that I didn't want. They didn't have the color that I wanted, and I wanted what I wanted, So they were tearing up all the flooring. They were taking out sinks and faucets and all that kind of stuff. And I was putting in my own stuff. So again, save your money because the builder is going to charge you 10 times more. And you can go to like, I don't know, if you have seconds and surplus or, heck, even Home Depot and get the stuff that you want and then upgrade that later. But of course, keep in mind that anything that you take out kind of voids warranty for a new construction for that particular thing.
Okay. So tell us more about this warranty thing.
Yeah. So the good thing is when you go new construction, the first year of you buying a house is like living in an apartment because anything goes wrong. Ring, ring, builder, come fix my faucet. It's dripping. I love that. So anything that goes wrong in your house, they will come in, they will fix it, no matter how frivolous it is or like just the smallest thing, they will come in, they will fix it that first year. But of course, you have certain things that have like different warranties on, like your windows could be like a 5-year warranty, but they're not going to have that one. And your roof will have maybe like a 10-year warranty, your foundation 10-year warranty. So, but the first year, everything is covered.
Okay. So it's good to know like what things have what length of warranty. So if you don't like the carpet, for example, you know that, okay, I don't care because the warranty is not that long anyway. Or something like windows are expensive. So maybe you don't want to take those out because they have like a 10-year warranty.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes sense. So from the time, and I want to just double back and just say, I really liked your point of you want to focus on getting upgrades for the things that you can't upgrade yourself after.
Yeah.
And also the point that the builder is going to charge you more than what would cost you to just do it by yourself. A lot of people get distracted by like, I don't like the color of like the carpet. I don't like the color of the cabinets, and they'll let go of a really good deal for cabinets. You can get really cheap at Home Depot. Like
exactly.
It's like, right, like you said, like higher ceilings will bring you more money. An extra bathroom will bring you more money. An extra room will give you more money. So like that's the thing you want. Those are the things you want to be looking at and thinking about, as opposed to cosmetic things where you can get somebody down the street to fix the thing for you.
Exactly.
So I really love that thinking. So we still have this money question here. So you signed your contract in January, end of January. When did you end up closing? How long did it take to build this house?
So I signed my contract in January, and they were like, well, your house will take about 10 months to build. So you're probably going to close in October.
Okay.
No, I closed in August. So
August of that year. So it was 8 months as opposed to 10. Okay.
Yeah. So it took 8 months as opposed to 10. So, but then at the same time, remember, I was traditionally that I had the money, because you're thinking I had 10 months to raise this money. But of course, thank God, I was living with my mom. So I was able to raise that money that way before the 8 months was over.
Okay. So I hadn't really considered, if you're buying a new construction, that gives you extra time to like get your funds together.
Yeah,
I also didn't realize that you don't have to have like the funds on deck when you talk to the lender. So it's
exactly.
nice to have that buffer where
Hmm.
you have time to get it together. And that's another reason why maybe it's good to go for a new construction as opposed to
Definitely.
getting a regular house. Because the regular house, you got to have your money like good to go because you're going to close in the next month or month and a half.
Exactly.
So you had 10 months, which ended up being 8 months
Yes.
to get your money together.
Yes.
So what did you do differently to be able to save up the money? Because like 11K, it's like, okay, that's not that bad to buy a whole house. But then
Hmm.
like most people don't have $1,000 in the bank, right? So
Yes.
saving up 11K in 10 months, like that's a big feat.
Yeah.
So what was your game plan in to make that happen?
So my game plan, of course, like I knew I was going to need all this extra money, so I moved in with my mom. I didn't have to be responsible for a whole $1,200 and you know utilities to be, and of course that doesn't even include your car payment and all that kind of stuff. So moving in with my mom was like you have to downsize. You have to downsize considerably because if you want something, you have to make certain changes within your lifestyle. So if you're going out every day, and I know us brunch ladies, like we can easily drop a good $200-300 on brunch every single weekend.
Wait a minute.
So
How much? Wait, why y'all spending $300 on brunch in Texas? That is wild. Our
what?
budget
Are
in
you
New York City, $40 unlimited brunch. New York City, unlimited drinks.
No, Texas used to have unlimited brunch, but because brunch is such an in thing, like brunches are expensive now. It's way more
Three hundred
expensive than
dollars is crazy.
yes.
I would never.
Are you serious?
$40
No.
max.
Like, do you
$50
really
is my
think?
budget.
Yes. No, brunch is expensive in Dallas. It's expensive because you also, I guess, with you guys, maybe you're not thinking about okay, where you're gonna go park your car, right? So all that kind of stuff. Like, there's so many things that add up to it. So by the time you're said and done, it's like $200 deep, and especially if you're just like not gonna go to just one spot, and then maybe after brunch you go to another spot, like a hookah place, or you just sitting there sipping on something. Again, it adds up.
Adds up.
You know.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you have to cut that back,
No more brunches.
Yes, no brunches for the next 8 months. I mean, I was working like crazy. The funny thing is, I actually got a second job. I actually got a
Mhm.
second job, and then as soon as I get the second job, literally within a month, like my original job ended up having like a shortage of like people. I think like several people got fired for some reason, and so I would work nights, and my schedule was like it's crazy. I think about it. I'd work nights, and I'd work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I'd get my 40 hours in within those 3 days, and so that left me with like time during the week to do nothing. So that's why I got the second job, because I knew what I wanted to do and what I wanted to achieve, right? And then so they ended up not having any they ended up getting rid of a lot of people, and then after that, like, they had all this extra time, so that meant overtime for me. So instead of me keeping this other job full time also, I just ended up working at my current job, and just now I'm not getting regular time, I'm getting time and a half, which is like way more than I'm getting from the other company. So it ended up working out really, really, really well for me, and I saved a lot of money. So again, and on top of that, I wasn't going out for brunch, I wasn't partying, I wasn't doing any of that stuff. So
You were
you have to
focused.
focus. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like you just decided, hey, like this is the thing that I want to get done, and I am going to do everything I can to make that happen. So,
Exactly.
uh, your biggest cost, right, was your rent, so that's gone.
Yeah.
And then like any fun stuff, cut that back as much as possible, right? Where I still keep maintaining your sanity,
Yeah.
and the thing is, it's for a season, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
it's not like you're living with your mom forever. It's not like you're cutting back and going out forever. It's just like, hey, let me just focus for the next 10 months and get this done.
Yeah,
And then at the end, you have, secured a place for yourself to live.
exactly.
It's like, what's more important, like partying it up and spending $300 for the weekend, or like,
Right?
although
Seriously.
that is fun.
Yeah,
Uh,
'cause you get up in a place where you're like, okay, fine, like, let's grow up a bit, right? Like, let's not make the same. Like, we had like I started partying in my teens. I'm sure a lot of people started too. So the
I
time you
was
get up to
not.
like 26 at this point, like, I'm tired of partying. Like
True.
I enjoy a good brunch moment, but I am not partying it up like I used to,
100% true. Um, so uh lost my train of thought here. Okay. So this 8 months in between the contract and then the closing. I know you said you got your lender because that you wanted that person to be like your eyes and ears on this construction bit. So
My realtor.
was your lender helpful in so between like January and October, like what did you have to do to make sure that the construction was happening? How did your realtor help?
So
I think I said
that
lender
is a
instead of
really
realtor.
good question because a lot of people they think, okay, fine, like new construction, like the builder's just building your house and easy peasy, you don't have to do anything. When I tell you, this was like the most stressful thing in my life. Oh my God.
Oh, what's
I
the
was not
tea?
prepared. I was not prepared for the amount of time and effort it was going to take to build a house because I nobody prepared me for this. I mean, I didn't talk to anybody about this. It takes a lot of time and effort and energy because one, the fun part, right, is you get to pick out everything that you want. But they're not so nice things in regards to how, I mean, of course this differs by state, right, and city, right? So the city that I was in, you can't have the same brick be used on houses that are like maybe, so like let's say I have a certain type of brick, the next four houses can't have that same brick. And you can't have the same elevation either. So you have usually whenever you're signing a contract, you choose your elevation and you can't be the same elevation. So let's say your neighbor came and maybe you can have the same type of house, like as in like the same model, but not the same elevation. So if your neighbor next door, if you happen to have the misfortune of having somebody that has the same elevation next to your lot, you can't have that. So you have to choose a different elevation. So maybe that might cost you maybe an additional $2,000 to change your elevation to what you really wanted. Maybe your neighbor beat you and got the base elevation that didn't require additional money. And then so now you have to upgrade to the next best one. One. Two, you get to the showroom, you can't, you choose your brick, you can't have the same brick as your neighbor. So I had the misfortune, I got the elevation that I wanted. I had the misfortune of not getting the brick that I wanted. And I'm now sitting there in tears because I can't figure out what brick I want.
Especially after you had
emotional.
especially after you had like researched what you wanted before you
Yes,
even signed the contract. Like you were
yes.
committed to this whole look.
And they tell you to drive around and take a look at like, the houses in the neighborhood that are already existing, and then you write down the addresses of the brick that you have. And so I go around driving around and writing down the addresses of these houses, right? Come to find out, I chose the same brick throughout, so I had no backup.
Wow, you really wanted that brick. Damn.
I did. And then so anywho, after the brick that I ended up wanting, because I wanted so my elevation was going to be brick and stone. So I wanted the white stone. I wanted a whitewash stone so bad. And now that brick is no longer available to match that white stone. So they were like, oh, there's this other brick, but then that brick had like little specks of gold in them. I'm like, well, does this brick have like gold all the way through or just like a little bit of it? They're like, we don't know. It's a new brick. Nobody's ever built with it. So we can't even tell you to go look at another address so you can see it. So you would be the first one to have it. So I'm like, okay, what would I do? So I was like, you know what? I'll come back to this later. So I went up, picked everything else. And then now this is the last thing I have to do. And I'm sorry, but I feel like brick is very important to any building. Like you can have the most beautiful house inside, but have this atrocious looking house on the outside. And I have seen some homes like that. And so
Outside matters.
Yeah. Right. And so I ended up picking it, and it ended up being a whole lot of gold, but I changed my stone to another one that had specks of gold in it, and so it ended up working well. So I was really, really happy about that. And sorry, where was I going with this? What question did you have?
Just the stress of kind
Yes.
of
So
putting
yes, so
together the
that was very
building.
stressful having to pick everything. But also now you have to go to the construction site, like I mean, weekly to make
Oh,
sure
that's
that they're doing everything right. Yes,
a lot
weekly.
of weeks
A
for
lot of weeks and a lot of time and effort to go through that, right? So usually, like, I mean, if you have a partner, you guys can interchange going there, right? But there's certain like, at least back then, because I didn't have to experience that with this current house, but back then every single stage that the builder was at, so for an example, if they get to like slab level, right, slab level, the city will come and they will inspect, and they will also, you know, have you as a homeowner come in and sign. Not that you know anything about slabs or anything like that, but it should just be like, hey, we showed you that we completed the slab level. It is what it is. At once they put the, what do you call this?
frame.
The frame, thank you. Once they put the frame, then you also have to go and select where you want your switches to be. So
Oh,
for an example, I met another girl who's lived within the same neighborhood, because we had the same floor plan, but she lived the next street over. So I wanted to go see her floor plan because I hadn't seen my floor plan fully built. Basically, when I signed my contract, and well into after I did my upgrades, I had not seen one that was like fully finished. So finally one was at that stage. So I went and I wanted to go see it. And I met this girl and she was telling me and giving me tips like, oh, make sure you do this because we didn't realize. And now when I open the door, the switch is at the back of the door. So that's another thing as a homeowner that you have to do during the construction. Figure out exactly where the switches are, because the builder will put in switches where it's most convenient for them. So for an example, if it costs them like an extra, you know, like wire, if it costs them extra wiring to put it on the side that you want, they're not going to do that for you. They're going to do what's best for them. So you need to tell them like, hey, remove the switch here and put it here. And you only have up until the framework to tell them to do that, because once the drywall goes up, you can't change it. It's already past inspection. That's a whole nother stage. So you need to have a walkthrough with your builder and tell them exactly where to put the switches. And if you paid for additional switches, and that's another thing that you need to know. You need to know exactly in this particular room, do you want to put a TV in there? And if there's a TV in there, then you can maybe pay for an additional switch to be like to have the switch in the middle as opposed to just keeping the one, because it'll be just easier to plug it. And how far up do you want it? Do you want it really high? Do you want it in the medium? Do you want it lower? It depends with your decor. They don't know, you know?
yeah.
So all those things are things that you need to consider, and you need to also kind of consider exactly what kind of furniture you're going to get beforehand. Because again, if they're putting in the connections for the wiring for the chandelier, so for an example, if you have an open concept, right? Your dining room, you need to know exactly where your dining room table is going to be, because that's exactly where center your chandelier is going to be. So you're going to change it out either way, but you want the wiring to be exactly where it needs to be. So things like that.
So was your realtor like coming with you for these inspections and advising you about these things?
No.
Okay.
Like my realtor would just pop in and out and will tell me, like, of course, like schedules can conflict, right? So you're not going to stop construction on your home to do this. Like I think the one for the framework, they came, but any other ones that were after that, he would go by himself and I would go by himself, and we'll exchange notes and be like, this is what I found. And he'll be like, this is what I found. And then he'll email the builder and this and this and that. Or if I email the builder and the builder is being very difficult about something, then I'll tell him, and then he will like literally like lay down the law for the builder.
Okay. All right. So like he did still go and look at stuff. You weren't necessarily there with him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This sounds like a lot of work.
It is. It's because you don't think about stuff like that, right? Because you're just excited. Oh my God, I get to build a house. Like it is what it is. But it's a lot of thought and intention that goes into it. Like it's a lot. Like you really have to be about it.
So we have someone that wants to come to brunch with you for these $300
Yes.
brunches. I want to come too, but I need a sponsor to pay for me. Shoot. Um, so okay, so if you are if you're
Oh,
going
that's a
through this
good
process
question.
of buying this house, and then you decide like halfway through, maybe your builder's doing shoddy work, or you decided you don't want to continue,
Yeah.
what happens? Like, what are your options? And like, do you like
You just
what
lose your
happens?
earnest money. That's about it. So like your 1.5 that you'd have put in, your 1,500, then that kind of goes into a hole. So that's good because you're
Okay.
only losing 1,500 as opposed to losing 200,000.
Okay. So you just lose your deposit and that's it.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's actually a really good deal for you as a you know owner or buyer.
Yeah.
So.
And I
But
guess
then
follow
again,
up.
it depends because there's some builders that because like last year when there was like the whole housing crisis and like people like builders were demanding $50,000 in earnest money. So again, would you rather lose $50,000? But it
No.
depends on what kind of house you're building. If you're building a $500,000 home, I mean, this was like back in the day, like it was like a $200,000 home. So the earnest money on that is not going to be that much. But the higher you go, the more earnest money you're going to have to.
Yeah. I mean, but $200,000 home in Texas is as a lot. Like, those are big houses that I've seen for 200K.
It's like 2,000 square feet. Like, I mean,
Okay, for city dwellers, like for city dwellers, like that's a freaking mansion. My friend bought a house for 250K, and I was like, oh my god, like it is a mansion. And she's like, oh, these are normal here. I'm like, nah, this is freaking like, so 200. So maybe for you it's like, oh, it's just 2,000 square feet, but like that's a big house. Like, that's a big house. That's a big deal.
I don't
So
know. In Texas, a big house is like maybe 6,000 square feet, like 7,000. Like, I mean, you're on a whole acre or something like that. Like, no, not a big house.
different levels. So I guess, like, so in this time where the house is being built,
Mhm.
was there anything that happened that kind of derailed or sidetracked the process, or was it like, anything that happened that was
No,
surprising in the building part?
no. If anything, I think I missed out on some opportunities because like builders are constantly upgrading, right? They get feedback from their buyers. And so, excuse me, one thing I hated about my bathroom was that the shower was on the other side of the tub and I wanted the tub and the shower next to each other. And literally as soon as I signed my contract, 2 weeks after they changed the floor plan of my the model of my house and put it to where what I wanted, right? And I initially had said something about it. And so at this time it was too late because once they submit the plans to the city, you can't really change them. So I missed out on that. And, it's just one of those things that's annoying because it's always ever changing, So that's another thing you kind of have to be prepared for, that in any building construction, really, things change. And even for my current house, they actually, like, right when I signed my contract, they had just changed to put the sink on the center island as opposed to before it was like on the window. And I actually didn't like that. And then they changed it right as I was about to. And I was like, yay, I get to have what I want. So it's like details like that, like some home, because I do know somebody to this day, they don't even have a house because they did not want to buy a house because the sink was in the center island and not by the window, and they wanted a sink by the window. But it's very difficult in this day and age where you have an open concept to have a sink in the island. And so they missed out in that sense. And they actually had a contract with the builder, canceled that contract, and was like, I'm going to go look at older houses, and ended up not getting an older house. And to this day, they don't have a house because of that frivolous decision. And I told them, just get the house. Like, it doesn't matter where your freaking sink is. You know what I mean? Like, you can always change that later if it's so important to you. And they're like, no, I want what I want. So again, to the point that we were making earlier, do not get your house because of something very cosmetic that you can change. You know what I mean?
I think sometimes two people, I guess, may not realize that it's pretty easy to fix that stuff. Like if you want to move your water line, just like get a plumber to come and move your sink wherever you want it. Like as long as there's water close by, like they can come and tell you. Like if it's between like they can tell you whether or not it's doable.
Hold on 2 seconds.
Sure. Yeah, like they can tell you whether like that line you want to move is doable and you know what it's going to cost. Ideally, you don't want to be moving water lines, but it's something that if that's the only reason why you're not buying a house, like you're missing out on, you know, gaining money over time by, you know, just not buying a house because of a sink, right?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
A fellow new construction owner.
Yeah.
So like I didn't know these things like that. You were saying like the building height has to be certain things. Apparently the roof has to be different colors. I know this is in Miami.
Yeah, because it differs by city because they don't want to make cookie cutter houses that they all look the same, right? So the city will put like certain conditions to where it looks a bit different.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But it's a bit stressful. But especially if you have your heart set on something and you have like this whole vision for your house and what you want it to look like, etc. So it's disheartening, but I see why they do the things that they do.
I mean, like you said, like there's the things that there was a comment about this. There's stuff where like it's gonna be expensive for you to change. It's gonna be expensive for you to like break walls or like change the roof or like extend, you know, the building size.
Yeah.
Whereas things like where your sink is, like your cabinets, like that's an easy fix. So it's like, would you rather pay $1,200 a month to your landlord and like that keeps going up?
Exactly.
Or you just get and then like over time you move your sink. For me, like I don't like paying rent, so I'm always like get into the building and then we'll figure out everything else.
But you would be shocked at the amount of buyers that are so tied to cosmetic stuff, because even when I was selling my house, my realtor was like, "Oh, don't look at the cameras. Like that's very weird. You know, just let the people come and take a look and all that kind of stuff." And I was like, "The hell? I want to know what people are saying about my house, right?"
Wait, so you were people looking at the house?
I was, because I wanted to hear their feedback. And so when I was selling it, they were like, one lady was like, "Oh my God, does this chandelier come with the house? Because if it doesn't, then I don't want the house." Okay, lady, you're gonna miss out on the house because of a freaking $200 chandelier. You
can even probably get chandeliers even cheaper. Like I feel like I've never bought a chandelier, but I feel like they're not that expensive. And like
they're not. Like literally go on overstock.com, and Overstock has coupons. Like my whole house is like Overstock, and I just love Overstock. A lot of people do Wayfair, but I don't know. I like Overstock better. Yeah.
So yeah, I like Wayfair. I've never done Overstock, but I think it's the same company.
It's the same company, but Overstock gives you coupons and stuff. So if you like literally, so for an example, like I have like for my new house, I have a 2-story dining room, and so I wanted like this massive chandelier.
Wait, 2-story? Oh, as in like
yeah, it goes all
like
the way.
Ceiling is super high.
Yeah,
in my head, I was thinking actually like 2 floors.
Ceilings. Yeah,
got it.
So I wanted like this massive like chandelier that came all the like it's a 2-story chandelier basically, right? And I saw it on another site. It was like $3,800. I'm like, oh hell no, this is not that serious. Oh. So I just kept looking, and then on Wayfair I saw it for $1,800. Then I'm like, oh okay. And then on Overstock I saw it for $1,600, and I had a coupon, and I ended up getting no, it was $1,400, and I ended up getting it for like $1,200 or something like that with coupons. So I'm like, it's a win. Like, I don't know. It's always cheaper. Things are always cheaper. It's the same company, same things, but things are always cheaper at Overstock, I feel.
I gotta check out Overstock. Also, a $3,000 chandelier is like next level chandelier.
Right? Like I was like, it's not that serious. I was like, when I saw it at $3,800, I was like, girl, you can keep that. I'm not buying that.
Like, no thanks.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering about like the lender bit. So in between the contract and then the closing,
Yes.
did you have to send like any updated like W-2s to your lender, or like were you just quiet until like it got to the time where the house was done? I'm curious.
So not at the when the house is done. So you
Okay.
start your closing process about a month or two before.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so you start it about a month or two before. I mean, of course, if like interest rates are like really really good at that point, I would say jump on it, and you can lock it up to, because I think the builder said, I mean, the lender said, don't quote me on this. You can lock up your interest rate 60 days prior to closing.
That
So
sounds right.
if it's good at that point, do not wait. So if you know, and the thing is, if they run your credit, right, and then you get that interest rate, and maybe the interest rate drops even more, you can still get the lower end. But I would say as soon as your 60 days hit, get your interest rate locked in. Do not wait at all, because things change.
And then did they just ask you for updated like
Yeah,
taxes,
though it's
W-2s, like
basically the whole shebang all over again. So during pre-approval, they will ask you for your bank statements, they'll ask you for your W-2s, your tax returns, all that kind of stuff. And they'll run your credit. So it's the same thing that will happen 2 months prior to closing. They'll start the process all over again and lock in your interest rate.
also can we give a shout out to your lender since you said she was amazing?
She was. Oh, so my
Did you
lender, I don't know, I think
Yeah.
she moved. Her name is Ann Lee. She works with Prime Lending. Yeah, Prime. She has an
Oh, okay.
office in, yeah, Prime Lending. So she shout out to Ann Lee. She was amazing. Answered all my questions. So yay.
We'll get her details and add them to the description.
Yeah,
Did
definitely.
did you use her for your current house as well?
No, I did not use her for my current house. I used a different builder because I think so. Because different builders, different could be
Incentive.
conflict of interest, right? So for my current house, I went again with the builder's lender.
Okay, got it.
And another
Uh,
thing that a lot of people don't know, because my friend recently bought a house, is your initial lender will almost always, like, unless you get to go to a particular, I don't know how it is, but doing new construction, they will always sell your mortgage to someone else. So if you go through the lender for the builder, then they might sell your mortgage to like Wells Fargo or something like that. Then you get a letter from Wells Fargo saying, "Hey, we're now your lender. This and this and this and that." So just be on the lookout on that, because some people don't know that. And my friend freaked out. And she's like, "What is this? What did I do wrong?" I'm like, "You didn't do anything wrong."
yeah, even for like non-new construction, like they're
Yeah,
probably gonna sell your loan, and
yeah, exactly.
it's normal.
Yeah, she
It's
felt
fine.
rejected.
Oh, girl, like they just want you. Why does it matter? Like you're paying the same money. Like
Yeah, like to her, nobody told her, like, so she wasn't expecting it. She's like, "Well, what did I do wrong?" I'm like, "You didn't do anything wrong. They do that. And like, I don't know.
yeah, that's a very good point, right? Don't get tied to your lender, because at some point, even if it doesn't happen right away, like
Yeah,
your mortgage is gonna get sold to somebody else,
yeah,
and
exactly.
it's normal. It's fine.
Yeah.
Um, was there anything well, you said that the the closing cost surprised you. Was there anything else that surprised you? Um, either in the lending or the new construction bit, just anything that surprised you in this whole like home buying process?
Nothing, because I mean, I think like I was very, very prepared.
Mm.
Like I was like running different scenarios. Like, I mean, it was like drill time in my brain, right? And so I think like considering everything, because I did hear horror stories, right? Because
About buying new construction
about new
specifically?
construction, like even like
Okay.
the people that were using my same builder in the same community, they had like horror stories, like, "Oh my god, my house is doing this, is doing that." I'm like, I have like no problems. Up until the time that I sold my house, I had zero problems. Like, I mean, I think the only thing that they had to come and do, like, I mean, I found that in every house, like the new construction home, because there's certain things that the builder cannot test for, right? So when you move in and you plug in all your stuff, your circuit breaker starts tripping because it has to handle the load of the things that you have. So the builder can't necessarily know exactly, because it differs per person, right? How much stuff you plug in and how much stuff you actually use. So they had to come and adjust the circuit breaker because of that. And also they had to balance my air conditioning. Like somehow my master bedroom wasn't, like it was freezing more than like the rest of the house and all that kind of stuff. So they just come and just balance it out and like that, you know. But of course, all of that is within like 1 year period, and you know, they covered it under warranty. They come and they'll fix it for free, you know.
I really
And
like this like warranty stuff, man. That's nice.
right, like I mean, it's like amazing because even like with my current builder, I was surprised that my current builder, their electrical is up to 2 years. So if you have anything that's tripping, circuit breaker wise, all that kind of stuff, I just had them come out yesterday. I mean, not yesterday, like a couple of days ago, and they came and they replaced the, you know, a few breakers and stuff because I wasn't home, so some of these things I didn't catch them, and so when I came, I'm still under my 2 year warranty. So yay.
So, the first house, when did you close on the first house? Your first house?
I closed August of 2017.
2017. And
Yeah.
then when did you sell that house?
I sold July, June, or something like that. So either June 1st or July of 2021.
That's like a quick, so you just had it for 4 years. That's it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what made you, okay, so first question, gotta talk about the money. So what did you bought that for 200K, right? 197.
197.
What was the sale price on that when you sold it?
It was 285.
That's a nice spread. Congratulations.
It would have been more had my freaking realtor had some, you know, but it's okay. We're not going to dwell on that because I did get a cash buyer.
No bad vibes. You got a cash buyer.
But yes.
Was your cash buyer from like California?
Yes, actually from California. Cash buyer, 300,000. And
they off. So 285 is what the profit was after paying the realtor.
Yeah, after paying the realtor, all that kind of stuff. That's 285. Okay. But I'm saying like I had a cash buyer beforehand, and we started going through the process, and they ended up pulling out because my HOA was like there was bylaws in the HOA that you couldn't rent within the neighborhood. But you could, but then it's just the neighborhood doesn't, the HOA doesn't care. So you can sell it to an investor and stuff, and there won't be any repercussions, but it's just the fine line within the contract of the HOA, they pulled out. And so
if I was buying and it said like in the bylaws that you could not, I wouldn't buy it. Because then whenever you want to enforce it, you can, and that's going to mess with my money.
Exactly. You see what I mean? So, so they ended up pulling out, and so I was bummed about that. But either way.
But I mean, like 85K in like 4 years, that's a lot of money, right? And so, and all you had to do was but you had to do a little bit of research, right?
Yeah, exactly.
do some research, ask some questions. Like you had to put in the time and effort to buy this house. Exactly. But in the end, like you had this profit that you probably would not have made if you were, just working, right? Exactly. Unless you were like saving like a fiend, which most of us can't, right? Like forget the stat, but like I think a whole bunch of Americans just don't have like $1,000 in the bank. So like the probability of you saving that much just from working is like really low.
Exactly.
So that's like congratulations on, making all that money from that house.
I mean, you don't spend all of it, you just spend a little, and you take that and you put it in another house and you build some more equity.
So did you buy your next house like right away?
Yes. So I'd already signed a contract with my current house builder, right?
Okay.
So they'll give you some time to like sell your house. And so I started freaking out, and I could have waited a little bit because I ended up closing again in August. So I sold, by the time I sold, I listed my house on the market. I mean, it was on the market for like maybe 2 days, and it was gone. The market was really good, right?
Yeah.
And so everything ended up being complete. Like I remember signing, I think it was July 1st. I think it was July 1st. July 1st is when we're signing the papers and all that kind of stuff. And then September August 31st is when I moved into my new house. So my current house was already being built. And then, of course, those are some of the things like I had never been through a selling process, like a buying process. I'll tell you that all day, every day. But selling process, I had known nothing about. And so it was good to actually go through the process and like kind of figure out exactly, what to do, what not to do, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, it was a process and a half, especially if you're doing new construction. I was building another home while still staying in my current home. So that was a plus. I didn't have to, leave my current home as soon as possible. But at the same time, you want to time it right to where you have a place to go. So some people, they'll wait up until like a month before closing and then actually put their house on the market. But then at the same time, I wouldn't suggest that, because also it could impact your closing date. So let's say you're set to close on your house maybe a day before the other one is closing. I would not recommend that. Like I would be freaking out. So I opted to do it a few months beforehand. That way I know everything is, free and clear, and I start my closing process on my new house without having anything looming over my head.
Might have to have you come back for another episode for a deep dive on selling a house. I've never sold a house, so
it's totally different. Totally different. So
I am curious about what made you decide to sell. Yeah, and that you wanted a new house, like a different house. Like,
yeah, no,
what was the decision on that?
I got a new job, and my new job was like downtown Dallas, and it was like, so with no traffic, it's like an hour away from my house, from like
that's a hell no.
Right? And then like in traffic, you're looking at 2 hours. I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm gonna sell. But in hindsight, and I know I could have kept that house and still I would have been able to afford both houses, right? Because that also, if you rent the other house out, it also counts as income towards your new house and all that kind of stuff, right? But I just didn't want the hustle of like, what if, and I kind of almost like I should have maybe just kept it and just rented it out, because like rent is crazy now in Dallas, in the Metroplex, but just having to be responsible for a whole another household and all that kind of stuff. Like I just didn't want the stress. So I opted to sell, and, but either way, I mean, you still get a, nice chunk of change, especially when I signed my new contract. It was even better because I signed my new contract before the prices went crazy. Like literally 5 days after I signed my contract, the base price for my house went up $25,000.
No way.
Yes, way. By the time I closed my house, the base price for my current house was almost $100,000 more.
That's absolutely insane.
So I would suggest, I would highly recommend you investing in property, because you can never go wrong. Like seriously, like my house right now, I couldn't afford it even if I wanted to. I couldn't.
To rent or to buy?
No, I couldn't. Seriously, it's prices have gone up ridiculously, like inflation and everything, and it was post-COVID, but still, it's crazy how things have just gone up. And like building post-COVID was a totally different experience also, because it's like supplies and all that kind of stuff were like backlogged, all that kind of, it was crazy. But I'm glad I did it right before, things it's crazy.
Yeah, I think every time that I've gone to buy a house, I'm always like, oh, it is so expensive. But then when you look back, it is way more expensive now than when I thought it was expensive.
Exactly.
Right. So like the house I'm in right now, when I was looking, I was like, I was struggling to find something like within my price range, and it felt like things were expensive. Like I just couldn't find stuff within the money that I wanted to pay. Exactly. And like the house was worth $100,000 more, and I bought it in 2019. Yeah. And so it's like, if you feel like it's too expensive, you either like, it's going to keep going up. Really.
It definitely is. Like there's no going back.
And like the example of your rent, like everybody's complaining rent's expensive, but rent is going to keep getting expensive. So you can either like wait for your landlord to jack up your rent, or figure out how you can secure your own place to live, so you don't have to worry about somebody like raising the rent for you.
Exactly.
But like yeah, I mean, for somebody that comes to you and says, hey, like houses are too expensive right now, what would you tell that person?
No, they're not. I mean, they are,
Tell
but
us more.
you're going to regret this if you don't do this. Because I kid you not, like I did not see the writing on the wall like it was going to be that. Like I'm saying, I signed my contract for my current home, and within 5 days, it went up $25,000, and I thought that was a lot. But now the base price for what I had my house at and what it is now, it's more than $100,000. So no, it's not. So it's going to keep going. It's going to keep going up. I mean, like now the market has kind of slowed down a bit, real estate wise. Some builders, they did reduce the prices, but you also have to think about your interest rate. Interest rates have gone up tremendously. So even if you have like 800 credit score and all that kind of stuff, you're still getting no nothing compared to the rates that we got like 2 years ago. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things that it's going to keep going. It's going to keep going, and it's not slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's always a good time to buy a house if you do your math. Like your math is going to tell you whether or not it's in your budget. It doesn't
Yeah.
really matter what the prices look like or what the interest
Yeah.
rates look like. If the math says that you can afford it, and it's better for your financial situation than renting,
It
right?
definitely is, because renting and paying heck anything over like because like now renting is like $2,000.
So that same apartment you had before, if you were still renting it, it would be like $2,000 for it.
Pretty much. And the
And
funny thing is, I was renting an apartment for like $1,200. My mortgage at that point on that $200,000 home was also $1,200.
yeah, I was gonna ask you like how much your mortgage was on that.
And he's like, really? You know? So it's like one of those things like, yeah, you have to drive like at that point, like, yeah, you're not in the middle of the city and everything, but you have to drive a little bit, like maybe 30, 45 minutes, but you're building a life, you're building equity, you know? So you can't look at it like, oh my God, I'm going to be far away from things and all that kind of, it's not always going to be the case. At some point, you have to start making plans for your future and investing. And we're always thinking about, oh my God, how do the rich get rich? They do stuff like this where they're not thinking about the right now. They're thinking about the future, and they're investing in things that that are going to build equity. And some people like my friends call me judgmental now, because like now if I meet a guy and you're driving a really, really nice car, let's say, I don't know, you drive a Range Rover, but you stay in an apartment, and I'm like, no, I don't want to talk to you because you make stupid decisions. You cannot be buying things that lose equity, and yet you know what I mean? Like,
I hear you 100%. 100%.
don't come at me thinking that's going to impress me when no, that's stupid.
You said, don't come at me. Lose my number.
Right? You don't even get my number. What are you talking about? No.
I absolutely, I hear you 100%. I went on this date with this dude, and he, first of all, was obsessed with his car. Like he literally got up and like went to move his car because somebody had parked next to his car.
Are you serious?
And then I was like, bro, it's just the car. It's like, no, it's not just the car. It's whatever kind. I don't even know cars. I don't know what it was. But he shared that his car payment was $1,000 a month. He did not have a house. He was renting. And also just there's a few things going on. Also was just like complaining, like he got a bad grade in this class he was taking, but he wasn't taking responsibility for it. It was like the teacher's fault. But so there was a lot, but then the thing that the car was $1,000 a month, I was like, fam, I can't do that. Like that could be your whole mortgage payment right there, or a good chunk of it.
Seriously.
So I totally hear what you're saying, and
your outlook in life changes, because then now you're like, it's like you grow up overnight, and the way you see things and the way you see life, it's like, and that's another thing that people don't prepare you for. And my friend did tell me this, like, I mean, not that, okay, like buying, I mean, it is an achievement, but it's not like my friend was like, it's lonely at the top, right? And I was like, I'm not at the top, this and this and this and that. And then like I start noticing, as soon as I buy my house, like you start losing friends left, right, and center.
That's sad.
You do, because it's like you're not always going to be readily available to do stupid stuff, right? So at that point, you're thinking, okay, fine, like I can't be out here living recklessly. I have a job because I also need to pay a mortgage. I also need to do this. But then at the same time, just like frivolous things that you and your girlfriend you talk about, and your girlfriend is like, oh my God, I'm saving up for a Chanel scarf. Wow, you don't even have anything to your name and you're worried about a Chanel scarf? Like, seriously? You start, things like that start annoying you, and you want people that are almost kind of like at the same level as you. Like, they help you grow, they help you do better in life, you know? So you start looking for people who are like-minded like you. So you do lose a lot of friends, and you do, you know, realize that, you know, maybe something, sometimes the only thing that was holding, that was keeping you guys close is that, oh my God, you're my day one, you know, you're my road dog. And this, it ends up being, you know, not enough, you know? So your outlook in life definitely changes, and you start taking a look at the bigger picture in life.
Mm. Yeah, I hear you 100%.
Yeah.
I'm curious if the way that you see your perception on a lot of money, did that change after
Oh yes.
you bought your house?
Yeah. Yeah, because like now it's like $10,000 doesn't scare me now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you can spend money in like a drop of a hat, you know? Like, it does not scare you. And it's scary that it doesn't scare me anymore. And like, you're not like we're talking about, like things, like certain things don't easily impress you because you know, like you can afford those things, you know? And it's just, your relationship with money changes. Either changes for the bad or it changes for the good. It just depends with what, you know, what kind of person that you are. But yeah, your relationship with money is just never the same after that, you know. And you're very intentional also with your money. And as much as, like, yeah, sometimes as a homeowner you do drop stacks on stacks of money, but the way I view it, like, it's funny because now I don't, it's like, I work from home, and I barely go anywhere, and unless I'm traveling, of course. But I'm like, I don't even spend money on clothes anymore. Like, I used to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on clothes. I don't, but I will drop $10,000 on my house real quick with not a blink of an eye. But because now I see where my money is going, no matter what I do to my house, that's always money that's appreciating, as opposed to if I buy some clothes and I can't fit them in the next couple of months because I have to lose weight because like my weight fluctuates. Like, I find that to be frivolous now. You know what I mean? Or just, you know, like I'll spend more money on experiences now than just
things,
you know. And the only things I'll spend money on is on my house. And so it's crazy because you want to appreciate your life, right, and make it to a better place, and that's to invest in a good way. But at the same time, you don't want to just work. Do not work. Do not do that. Definitely save some money, travel. I always tell, like, and it's weird because when you spend money and you travel, it opens up your eyes and how you think in life and how you go about treating different people, because you get to have a newfound appreciation for different people's culture. And when you do that, you have a higher tolerance, and you get to understand people. Like, you know how, like, there's certain people that are just bad, like you don't even, like, you're not even mad at people like that, but you understand that people have different upbringings, they come from different backgrounds. And I feel like traveling opens up your mind in that sense, that you some of the things that we take for granted, like, oh, we've always had these things, a roof over our head, water, all kinds of stuff, it's normal, but it's not normal for other people. So whenever they do maybe certain things and go out of their way to commit crime and all that kind of stuff, it's because they didn't have stuff like that. So you're more understanding in that aspect, that not everybody has a good upbringing like the way you did, you know. And by good, I mean just having the basic necessities, because not everybody has that, you know. So I don't know, it just totally opens up your mind in a whole different way.
Yeah, I mean, it you know, once you have more flexibility with your budget, you can spend your money in the things that are important to you, right? So for you,
Yeah.
it's traveling, and for me, I love traveling as well. And like, you are, like you said, you just see so many options on different things that you could be doing, and just
Mhm.
different ways that people live, like you said, and like how you can possibly like design your life so that it's different, or even just understand that everybody's different. And
Yeah.
yes, you might be judgmental about the car
Yes.
guys.
right? We had somebody was not
Like,
appreciative of the car guy judgment.
It's
But
a
then,
depreciating asset. We cannot leave the cars out of this, okay?
right?
No.
So you might be judging about the car guys, but at the same time, but that's like that's your I don't say litmus. Like what not, I can't think of the right word, but like that's what you need for somebody that you want to be around.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody you want to be friends with. Doesn't mean that car guy is a bad person. He might be a nice person.
It's not for me.
I'll see you when I see you. Hey, what's up? But like, I don't want you in my immediate circle because the people that you talk to the most are going to impact like the level that you're at, right? So if everybody around you saying, "Oh, you have this one house, you're amazing," like this is the top, then you're never gonna want to go like further. Whereas if you have the friends that have like 10 houses and it's like, oh shit, I think I'm good with this one house. No, I'm not.
Yeah, no.
So
and it's a really good point that you make, because I always tell that to my other friends, like the people that you keep in your orbit, right, needs to influence you. I mean, not they do influence you, right? In any which way. So if your people that you keep in your orbit are less than stellar, you're going to think and look at some of these things like, oh no, this is okay, right? So case in point, if your orbit or your close group of friends, all of them, they get, I don't know, their husbands beat on them, you will think that's normal for your husband to beat on you, right? So if you keep friends around you that are always excelling and taking things to a different level, then it inspires you. Not that you look at them and you're like, no, I'm jealous of them, they shouldn't have that, I should have that. No, you should let that inspire you, and you trade secrets and you talk about how they got there, and then you implement that, and they cheer you on and they help you and you help each other. That's how it should be. That's how friendship should be. That's and I hate this whole notion of women hate each other. I have not encountered that. Like seriously, like all the women that I keep around me, like they love me and uplift me. And I don't know where this notion is. Yes, there will be some bad apples in anything, right? But for the most part, like the women that I know are very supportive, There's such a thing as girl power. And we need to keep that momentum of girl power and empowering each other and teaching each other and also holding each other accountable, because there is such a thing as, being your sister's keeper. And I don't want just yes people around me. I want people that are going to empower me and tell me, oh, you know what, Nyasha, this is not the right way that you need to go about this. Maybe you should go about it this way. Oh, maybe you should rein it in a little bit, like those are the type of people that you should keep around you. Don't keep some yes people around you.
Those were some serious gems. Absolutely love it. We still have some pushback on the cars.
You don't like traveling? I know traveling can be a bit of a hustle, but trust me, it's totally worth it. It is. Or maybe you could just put a background like on your what was it, like a screensaver on your TV and just pretend that you're in Hawaii or something like that. I don't know, maybe it helps, but I want to be in Hawaii. I want to get out. Like I can't, like if I stay more than 6 months without going somewhere, I start feeling very claustrophobic. Like I can't breathe. Like I need to get out.
I hear you. And like, listen, the cars are fine. Like the thing, it's not don't spend on your car, but don't spend on your car if you don't have a house, right? Like if you have a house, get all the cars you want. Like if your money's right, if that's your thing that you like to spend on, that's great. But just like have somewhere where you're also investing and like your money's working for you, and you're not just like blowing your money on these cars.
Exactly.
So, and I know he is. So would you consider building a house outside of the US, or would you build a house in Zim or like anywhere else that's
I'm
not
currently
the US?
in the process of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I was like, wait, you have all this experience with like, put like building a whole house. So like, would you actually do that in Zim? That's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm currently doing that. So I'm currently still purchasing land in Zim. There's this new community called Pomona City. Is supposed to be the new Dubai in Zim or whatever.
The new Dubai. Okay.
Yeah, that's what they say. I'll tag you on their post. And so yeah, so I'm investing in that. And so after that, I do intend on start buying. And then my childhood home, I'm demolishing that because I just got, like, last year, I just got done renovating my grandmother's house.
Okay.
So that was like a whole
done.
another thing. And so we're going to be demoing my childhood home, and we're going to be rebuilding a whole nother thing because there is a housing shortage in Zimbabwe. And so I do want to invest. And it's crazy. Like, as Zimbabweans, like, we don't invest back into our community as much as like other people do. Because I do have like friends from like Nigeria, Tanzania, and all that kind of stuff. And they always go home, and they always, I mean, I don't see myself moving back home anytime soon, but I'm like, why is it that we don't invest as much as like other Africans do, right? And so I was like, why don't I do that? And so, and the margins in Zimbabwe are very high also. That's another thing I never thought about, because like land is cheap there, but building maybe not necessarily as cheap, but you can take your time with it, and it's all cash, and the margins are very, very high. So you can just do building and selling and make your money that way.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. I think a lot of older Zimbabweans like buy and like they'll build, but I definitely don't see a lot of like younger Zimbabweans doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like, for me, it's like, okay, like for me to build something from scratch, like it just sounds like this complicated thing where if I'm not there to actually like make sure it's like going
you
proper.
do need somebody that you trust a lot. You do. And I just so happen to just find somebody like a contractor that is like really, really amazing. Like, when I tell you, like, I had never met this guy, and I sent him like by the time I was done doing my grandma's reservation, it was probably like $70,000 deep, and every single penny that men accounted for, sent me receipts, all that kind of stuff. So you do need a contractor that is like very trustworthy, and you can just have any Tom, Dick, and Harry, because like, heck, even family sometimes, I'm sure you've heard some horror stories of people trying to build back home, and they send it to the family members and all that kind of stuff. So when you have a really reliable contractor, like, it works.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this house that you're building. You're gonna have to like document and tell us how it's done.
It is difficult. It is difficult building in Zoom because, but
wait, what is it? We don't know. Tell us more. What do you mean? Because that means nothing.
No, like, it's when you're used to certain ways of like building, and everything is like on the up and up. Like, I hate greasing palms. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not our thing. We didn't grow up on it, but it's, unfortunately, that's just the way of life in Zoom.
I know, man. You gotta know somebody that knows somebody, and then give them a little cut. Sadly, but I mean, but it's like sadly, but also it's like if you want to get something done, like you just need to know somebody, really.
Yeah.
So it's like a good and bad. It's like both sides of. It's like a bad thing, but it's a good thing because like if you have the funds and you know the person, anything you want to get done, you can get it done.
Yeah. But that's the thing, like, the beauty about doing that is you don't have to have all of it, right? There's no such thing as like closing costs or whatever. So if it takes you 10 years to build, it takes you 10 years. You know what I mean? There's no time limit on when you need to have this thing done by, So that's another good thing, where by the time everything is all said and done, you don't owe anybody anything, and you get to take your time with it. So even if you have $1,000 that you send every month, and it takes you however long, that's however long it takes. You know
what my favorite part is?
Right.
No property taxes.
Yes! Tax free.
That is my favorite part. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. But it's an amazing thing, like, trust me, like, last year I had a whole different sleeping schedule. You definitely need to be alert, and then like choosing material over the phone, over video. Oh gosh.
It's a lot. It
is an experience.
Yeah, my mom has done a few like projects, and it just sounds like it's like stress. Like I don't have the heart for that right now.
It's totally worth it.
So we have a congratulations are here for building a house outside of the US. So we're gonna have to have you back to talk about that as well. I'm curious, do you think if you hadn't bought your own new construction, how do you think you would still be comfortable, building something in Zim?
Oh no, I would be very intimidated by that because it's like you don't know anything, right? And like it's funny because like I didn't start with building, right? I started with renovating like an existing building because I didn't want to just dive in head first into something I didn't know anything about. And so I started renovating my grandma's house basically from scratch. Like when I say we replaced everything but the bricks on the house, we replaced everything but the bricks. And so it was a really good thing for me to do because you get to gauge exactly how people work back home. And you also, and like everything really that we used, again, Google is your best friend. I was on Facebook, in this instance, Facebook, right? And it sucks because then people do not know how to use hashtags. So it's very difficult to find things, right? But by some stroke of luck, I would type in tiles, Harare, and things popped up, contact those people, try to figure out exactly what's going on, send my contractor there. He takes a look at it. He'll give you yay, nay, that's not going to work, or no, that's not good quality. And he would go and he would buy things for me and it would be on video type of stuff. So it was a lot of communication, a lot of research, and a lot of God's grace, really, but start with something small, don't start, head in building something in a place you know nothing about. Because I mean, like really, like I'd only probably been to Zim like once before since I came here. So I know nothing about Zim.
This is like a big project.
Right? And so definitely that was a really good starting point for me. And so now that I know exactly, how the whole process is, so we're going to take it up a notch. And I always tell people, like, don't be in competition with other people. Be in competition with yourself. Set your goals, achieve your goals. And then once you achieve those goals, set another goal. And that's how you keep climbing up. Because if you start now setting your goals according to other people, it's a huge disappointment. And you're not going to do things out of, the enjoyment of doing them. You're going to do them because you're trying to outdo or outbid the next person, and it doesn't work. It's not the way to live. So I always set goals for myself. I achieve them and I set new goals for myself. So yeah, it's unfortunate that, I mean, there's tons of people that have built in Zimbabwe and all that kind of stuff. But for me, like within my family, like I was the first, and so you also need to learn to just, and it's another thing, I think sometimes we have groupthink, that we only do things that we know other people have done, or we think a certain way that other people think, right? Like, but I don't wait to know of somebody, or I don't do something because somebody else has done it. Like, do your research and take life into your own hands. Like, it's your life. You only have one life, right? So don't wait for somebody else to tell you and handhold you that you need to do this. And at the stage that you're in now, you do this. At this stage now, you do. No, there's no, in life, there's nothing. If you have somebody like that, great, kudos for you. But if you don't, there's not going to be Prince Charming that's going to come and save you and be like, hey, get on my chariot, we're gonna go to my freaking palace. And no.
Wait, that's not gonna happen.
That's why we bought our houses and we're leaving our lives, because we know, because I'm like, be prepared for anything. And that was another thing, like, well, people are like, why are you buying a house? You're single, you should wait until you get married. And I'm like, what if I don't? Now what? Now I waited my whole life to do this thing with this person that I was told is going to come sweep me off my feet, and we're going to get married and have a huge wedding, and we're going to, buy a house. We're going to travel together. No, I'm not waiting until that. I'm still going to live my life. Do I want that? Yes. Am I working towards that? Yes. But if it doesn't happen, be okay with that. There's nothing wrong with, being a cool auntie, rich auntie is what they call them, right?
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like, live your life, honey. Do not stop.
So, I mean, you have dropped so many gems, and there's so many awesome tidbits to go through and listen through, and like super inspiring that you're doing all this. And it all started with you just buying that one house, right? Started with you, even though there was nobody around you that had done this, you just took some steps, did some research, and then you got that first house.
Yeah.
So if there's a woman that's listening to this and she is dreaming about buying that very first house, but she's nervous, she thinks maybe it's not the right decision, what would you say to that person right now?
I would say do it. Do whatever you want, regardless of what pushback you get. Like I said already before, this is your life. You have one life. That what we know of, I guess, unless if you believe in reincarnation and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, you're not going to remember this life, right? So live your life the best of your abilities and make decisions for you. Make decisions for the person you're looking at in the mirror, because that's the only person that you need to please. And that's the only person currently, until you have kids, that you need to live for. And even when you do have kids, like you still need to be you to some capacity, right? And even if you do have kids, because there's a lot of single parents out there, they're like, well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And I always say this, right? Like my best friend, she just closed on her house in February. And I'd always tell her, you need to be serious with your career. You need to do this. But you need to start with yourself, right? And also taking that leap of faith. Manifestation is a very powerful thing. The things that we put out into the universe are the things that we receive. We have to be very intentional with what we put out there, because like I told you, I've always told myself that I need to have some kind of property by the time I was 20, but by the time I was 30. I bought my first house at 27. And by then, I didn't make a lot of money. I probably made like maybe $55,000 a year, And even then, I was like freaking out, like, okay, what am I going to do? But literally, as soon as I closed, I took a trip. And when I came back, my manager begged me to apply for this position, like being the lead for our team and stuff like that, right? And I did, and I got the position. Like literally, like within like a month, I had a whole different position. So you see how when you make the first step into doing something, God always provides a way, and things open up for you. And so I was able to get into leadership, and I have been climbing the corporate ladder ever since, And the same thing with my friend. My friend was first my mother, because my mother, after she saw this, stayed maybe like 3 years in my house. And then after that, I started looking for my new house. And she was like, well, maybe I should look for, and I'm like, we literally argued about this for several hours, like you need to buy a house. And then we went looking. She's like, well, but what if, I don't think I can afford it right now. And I'm like, you don't know what you can afford. Just go look, right? We went looking. She filled in an application, got pre-approved, and she was still making that same money, right? By the time she closed, within like a month, she got a whole nother job, making double what she was making. So it's like, doors always open up for you when you take control of your life and you take that first step. And it's just one of those things that, I don't know, it just goes hand in hand. Same with my best friend. She took that leap of faith, started the home buying experience, and moved out of her house and came and lived, closer here to the suburbs where it's like nothing, right? And she rented for like 6 months and started a home buying experience and closed. And she was like, oh, I don't want to start, doing this right now because I have a lease and this and this and this. The builder told her, we'll buy you out of your lease. So it's like things just open up for you. And whether you're a single mom, whether you're a single girl like me, you just have to take that leap of faith. Once you take that leap of faith, doors will open, things will start happening, and it has to start with you. And I always say God helps those who help themselves. And I think your blessings are there. You just have to take that, leap of faith, or you have to reach out and grab your blessings, and, clench them, do whatever you want with your blessings. But your blessings are there. You have to take ownership of your life, and you have to take that first step.
Absolutely love it. Reach out, grab your blessings, live your life, YOLO. And God will provide. Nyasha, thank you so much for all the gems that you dropped today. If somebody that is listening wants to connect with you, where can they find you?
Sure. You can find me on my Instagram is Claire, CLAIRE_envy. Or you can just find me on Facebook, Nyasha Madamombe, or you can email me at missn88@yahoo.com. Again, missn88@yahoo.com.
And I will add all those links in the description below. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will see y'all on the next episode.
Thank you for having me.